The first codexes of 9th edition are finally here, and we're so excited to have the Necron books. This is a faction that both you and I collect. We're huge fans, and I think we've all been dreaming of this day because this is an army that needed a lot of love, and we're just so excited about it getting the first release with tons of new units. So why don't we jump ahead, take a look at all the things that have changed with this great book. So first, I want to say that this new book is really, really cool.
Oh, yeah.
It adds in a ton of flavor, lots of new play styles, tons of new units, really fleshes out the army in a meaningful way.
Yeah, they've always had a really gorgeous spans of models, and they've been really, really cool.
Yeah.
We've expanded upon those, made some more interesting, giving new actual households and things like that that you can actually work with. So this is all really exciting if you're playing Necrons or interested in them.
That's right. Lots of play styles, and every dynasty really feels very unique and is going to encourage you to play different units. Whereas the dynasties before didn't really have a lot going on.
They were such minor changes, but now they're actually quite significant.
And
it
this
really
book,
changes it.
This is the only faction that didn't get a Psychic Awakening.
Yep.
So this army has seen kind of a big lift as it's coming up to date.
Right.
But with that, this codex is actually really complicated. There's a lot of new rules. It's very, very different. And there's a lot to keep in your head here, a lot going on at any one point. And I think this is kind of a theme for 9th edition, that the game is just getting much more complicated. Yeah,
that's definitely something you're going to want to look for. Look at when we're going forwards. This is kind of the beginning of 9th edition, truly, right? We've had the core rules, but this is probably a pretty good idea of how things are going to be. There is, in some ways, much more structure, a lot more options for how you organize things. It does make things more complicated, but also can make things much, much more interesting.
Yeah, and I'd say across the entire army, we saw improvements. Basically, the dynasties are better. You've got some new abilities we're going to go over.
Right.
Your weapons got better, both in combat. A lot of your abilities and data sheets got better. And with all of that, the points didn't really go up.
No.
So the army got better overall. The big question is, did it get better enough because it was one of the most underperforming armies? Did it get better enough? Well, why don't we jump ahead, take a look at some of the dozen or so biggest things you need to know about this change. And I'm going to start with one big one. It's called Command Protocols.
That's right.
Command Protocols, if you're familiar with Space Marines, is like Doctrines. Every turn you get another ability. It is, in true Necron fashion, very complicated now.
It's so complicated.
Right? You have 6 Command Protocols, and you get to pick secretly before the game. It's actually after you've deployed, but before you roll for first turn, you get to write down secretly which Command Protocol goes to each turn. And you secretly reveal it each turn.
Right.
But it's actually more than that, because as you reveal it, each Command Protocol has 2 abilities, and you get to choose which one to activate.
That's right.
And depending on the dynasty you are, certain dynasties all have a preference for a particular command protocol, and then you get both abilities for that one turn. And then there's other stratagems that change it, and there's other characters that change it on top of that.
It's so complicated. Although, looking through it as we go through the rest of the book, there really are certain orders that you end up picking, especially kind of, are you a shooting army, are you melee army, are you trying to do board coverage? And so these combinations become apparent, but it's very overwhelming at first.
Yeah, if you want to see how to play these in more depth, we did a full Codex review video a couple days ago, so we go in more depth there. Also, we've got a couple battle reports, one already up, where you see the way I've used it. But just to give you a sense, one of these is called the Protocol of the Sudden Storm.
Cool.
And this one gives you +1 move to your army. It also gives you, the other option you could pick is that you could both take an action and shoot.
Oh, that's cool.
So this is pretty good for the first turn, where you're trying to get up on the board, and maybe you're raising the banners, but then you also want to shoot with your warriors.
Right.
That's kind of cool. Now, another thing I didn't mention is actually you only get the benefit of this within 6 inches of a character. So it's even more elaborate. And I think you even have to have a noble in your army to even unlock command part. Whatever. There's so many rules.
And the character can't be a Catan.
Yeah, can't be a Catan.
It's so strange.
It's layers and layers and layers of rules. Anyways, that's one of the biggest things that's changed. The next big thing is Reanimation Protocols.
Yes.
Right? This is the heart of this army.
This is a massive, massive change, right? Previously, you had to survive an entire round of shooting or combat or whatever it was.
A whole turn.
Well, yeah, exactly. Everything combined. You'd have to survive in order to bring them back. Now, the way it works is you roll immediately after a unit has finished shooting or attacking you. So, is it better? Is it worse? Well, it's kind of both. For mass single wound bodies like warriors, it's much better. You're constantly replenishing them, getting them back. You basically, it's kind of like a feel no pain, but it's a feel no pain that, again, doesn't care about damage, right?
Yeah.
If it's 3 damage, it doesn't matter because it kills them, they get right back up. So in that sense, it's better. the way it works with the wound pool for things like destroyers, it is tougher, right? So if you lose a 3 wound model, you get 3 dice, but then you need 3
You have to pass all 3s.
4s.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not as great for those multi-wound models.
But in most matches, if you had a unit of 5 or 6 destroyers, your opponent knew they had to kill them dead. And so in this case, at least you still get a chance, whereas before you had no chance.
Right.
And one thing, so that's the general theme I like about this. Before you had to take big blobs, and then you had to keep them immune to morale. And that was the only chance of reanimating ever, and even then it barely worked. Now if you have a lowly 5-man immortal squad, and someone shoots at it, you still have a chance to reanimate, unless they kill all 5 during one activation, which is a lot harder to do now.
It's deceptively tough to actually deal with. I haven't even kind of started to mess around with this. It's like normally when I kill immortals, I'll be honest, it's kind of blink damage, blink wounds, very, very efficient to kill them. And now you have to absolutely, waste extra fire or, all of these things that really throw your opponent off. That's a big deal.
So the army actually got noticeably more defensive. Now, when we talk about the multi-wound models, the entire army got living metal. So every turn, every model gets a wound back. And so that's really, really interesting for those multi-wound models. So you've got like a 2-wound Praetorian, and he's got living metal, and it's coming back. That is all really good, and you can't discount that, because that really helps balance it out. And one of the command protocols gives you 2 wounds back from living metal, which is a great turn for all your 3-wound models, right?
Right, and that's something to be expected. There are ways of sort of boosting this. Another big change is one that's not entirely unexpected, is Tesla. So one of the main things about Tesla was it was unmodified 6s before. You could boost it with My Will Be Done. So you're exploding 5s.
This is like a core tactic of the army.
Exactly. And kind of as a trend that we've been seeing in 9th edition, it is now unmodified 6s.
That's right.
Which is mostly a bummer. But again, with the prevalence of dense terrain, you now don't have to worry about that.
It benefits you as much as it hurts you. But before you take a big unit of the Tomb Blades here with the Tesla, buff them up so they're exploding on 5s. It was great, but also, how many times did you lose your Tesla because you were hitting
Even in our games before this Codex, how many times was I'm going to put these guys behind the dense terrain, and you didn't get those buffs. So that's kind of a nice change.
They also upped the points cost of Tesla in many cases. So you actually pay more for a Tesla Immortal than a Gauss Immortal.
So weird.
You pay more for Tesla on a few other models as well. And a lot of the big Tesla guns, like the twin heavy Teslas or whatever, they upped the number of shots on them. So overall, Tesla actually had a weird change. There's another change you want to talk about. It's called the Royal Court. And it's basically says that there's a clear hierarchy in your army. If you have a Pharaon in your army, they have to be the warlord. If you don't have a Pharaon, then a lord has to be it, or an overlord and then a lord. And if you have the Silent King, he has to be your warlord.
That's cool.
And so it's a very, very clear hierarchy, and it really dictates who gets to be the warlord. So you can't just take your Scorpec Lord, because he's the bottom of the barrel now. He's not a Pharaon, he's not an overlord. So your Scorpec Lord, you can't just make him the warlord. But the benefit is, for the first time, this army has the ability to buy extra warlord traits. So you could buy up to 2 in a 2,000-point game, so you still get your warlord trait if you want on your Scorpec Lord.
And that's a cool thing. That one also scales depending on the size of your game.
That's
so it will be 2 for 2K, which is generally what we play. That's right.
Yeah, so one of the other big things I want to talk about is the stratagems. We're not going to go through all the stratagems, but I want to talk about some of the stratagems that are missing. The stratagems that you're used to.
Oh, no.
So I'm not talking about any of the new great stratagems, because there are some good ones. I'm going to tell you about the stratagems that were things you did in almost every game that you don't have anymore. And one of them is augmented targeting. This is the 3 doom size that used to hit a spot and explode. Everyone used to fear this.
It's so scary.
It's gone.
Yeah.
So it's not a thing. The Pharaon's Will, this is do My Will Be Done one more time. I use this every turn of every game, basically.
Of course. It was amazing.
It's gone. But they did replace it with the ability to upgrade one of your characters, one of your overlords, to a Pharaon. And then that's 2 CP, and you can do it every turn. So it's similar.
In the end, it's probably better.
It's probably better, but it's not as much optionality in a way.
Yeah, totally.
Adaptive subroutines. This was the ability to shoot and charge after advancing. This was the key to raids. There's no more advance and charge.
Raids had a lot of changes, and we'll talk about that more later.
So no more advance and charge, no more advance and shoot with Canoptic. Reclaim Lost Empire. This one was a big one. This one was Nikolak's stratagem for +1 save. And used to take the Tesseract Vaults and put them to 3-up invulns.
It would work on invulns. It was a huge thing. Or wraiths up to 2-ups.
It
was disgusting.
They got rid of that.
GW, Mr. James Workshop has definitely shown that they don't appreciate low-value invulns. So not unexpected, but it's a big deal nevertheless, right?
And the last one I'm going to mention is Blood Rights, which was a Novak ability. And it was just fight twice with any unit. Fight twice with almost any unit. Now you can only fight twice with flayed ones. And it's cheaper, and it's for any faction. So that's okay. But you lost that. So there's some key strats there that are missing.
I think fight twice was such a common, expensive strat that they kind of wanted to just cut that out. Let's do more specialized things. So there's another entire category that's been fundamentally reworked, and that is the role of cryptechs. Previously, we only had one cryptech that has loosely been translated into the Chronomancer.
That's right, the Chronomancer.
So they each have individual roles. The Chronomancer is the one that traditionally would have given a 5+ invuln against shooting.
He's like manipulate time. And he would give you the invuln. Now the Chronomancer gives 2 abilities. He does give the 5 of invuln, and he also gives reroll charges because I guess he lets them move faster or something.
Exactly. Well, and the invuln is pick 1 unit. It's not a bubble. Things like this. Again, you can't just make these massive blobs and just sit there. So you have to be more decisive with it. So that's one of the cryptechs, Chronomancer.
I don't think you can underestimate how big that is. Like that was like it's like making Necron army list. Chronomancer cryptech, right?
Right, or Arcana, if you're lucky enough.
And it also gave bonuses to reanimation, which it doesn't anymore. So that's a huge, huge change. The new Chronomancer is like not that interesting.
No.
And the nice thing, it's a 9-inch aura or 9-inch select.
Throw it.
But 3-inch aura of giving it was way better.
I'll be honest, that hurts a lot.
That's big.
Losing that almost basically army-wide invuln, right, against shooting. That's actually a really, really big hit. So
I wonder when your orcs are going to lose it too.
I know, right? Yeah. And again, just to reiterate about Oricon, he's also affected by this. He used to kind of have a slightly better version. It's all the same now. Just so you know, because I know some people will be wondering. But they also made 3 more different kinds of cryptechs. They made the Psychomancer, the Technomancer, and the Plasmancer. That's right.
Because they needed more Mancers in their life.
Got to get your many Mancers.
The funny thing is, there's so many of these now, and this army runs out of HQ slots. They made them not take up HQ slots.
Which is cool.
So that's actually great. If they're in a detachment, I think, with a noble, they don't take up an HQ slot. I do want to say none of these are good. And I hate the models are all super rad. I have a Plasmancer right here. Super cool model, but no, not good. The Technomancer is all about the rezzing ability. So within 6 inches, he can res a model, or he could do D3 if it's warriors. And he gives +1 to hit for all canoptic units. Now that sounds great until you realize they took 1 weapon skill and ballistic skill from all canoptic units.
This is part of the race thing I was mentioning earlier. They lost all of that. So you basically have to run this character and try to keep up with these very fast units just to get back what you had before, right? And that feels bad.
The Psychomancer is actually interesting. He's all about like terror. And within 12 inches of enemies, you roll 3d6. And if you beat their leadership, you get to pick an ability. The best ability in the whole list is removing OBSEC. And that's just really great. You'll just move some scarabs up, take away their OBSEC, and all of a sudden you have more units or something.
Game-changing.
It is.
That is massive.
So that's actually good. But 12 inches, oof.
It's 12 inches, it's 3d6, so like it's fairly reliable, but not reliable enough to like actually build your strategy around. It is also the coolest model, though.
It is a cool looking model. He can also half your advance and charge. He can make you fight last. He can give you no overwatch. Like, these are cool abilities.
They're weird, though. Like, fight last. Okay, if you're within 12, you're probably charging, so you're already fighting first. And then if you're taking the charge, then they can do other stuff.
And you do it in your turn, not in their turn.
And that's the same problem with the half advance, half charge.
That's right.
I'm already 12 away, so.
And he has a small aura of -1 leadership and -1 attrition. But it's a teeny aura. It's like 6 inches. So it's like all great abilities, but not at 12 inches. Right?
That's it, exactly.
The last one we haven't talked about is the Plasmancer. He's basically their ability to smite. So he can spit out a 24-inch smite, and then he can do like a bubble around him of 1 mortal wound on 4-ups. It's nothing. No one cares. He's so short range.
I have better things to spend my points on.
He is so short range, so it's super unfortunate. So maybe I think you're going to see the Psychomancer more often, just because no OBSEC, but even then, you could leave it at home.
I'm just thankful that they don't take up slots, because if they took up slots, it would be 100% over right away. So
they do get this ability called Arcana, which is basically special relics that you can buy for them. Now, I'm here to tell you they're all bad, and I hate to say that, but there's one that allows you to give cover to a unit that's within 9 inches if they're being shot at from outside of 12. That one was like, okay. Giving cover to a warrior blob is kind of interesting.
Because they only have 4-ups normally, so they kind of need it.
There's another upgrade that you can give to one of your cryptechs, and it means they can't be targeted unless they're the nearest, so it's old character targeting. So it's like, okay, I buy a cheap cryptech, and then I keep them on my backfield objective. And that's the best thing you could do.
It's like quite good, but not interesting.
It's not good. It's like the best thing I could do is pay for her to keep him out of the game.
Right?
I mean, like the most interesting thing he could do is not play.
You can take up a lot of board space.
So it's a shame that the best thing I can do is buy him and then pay extra to not use him.
Exactly.
That's I'm saying something about it.
We're very positive people, but we gotta tell you how it is. So let's talk about the man of the hour.
Yeah.
He might not speak for himself, but we'll definitely speak for him. We of course are seeing the return of the Silent King, a massive character in the lore. So there's a ton of really cool and exciting stuff about him in the book. We won't spoil anything, but it's really cool.
Tons of lore. Yeah.
There's massive lore.
And really, this is part of the biggest lore update for them. They're really
honestly, yeah.
They're waking up and becoming a real empire. They have a plan. They have a leader. It's really great, and this is one of the most epic models to put on the tabletop. We don't have it yet because it's not out just yet, but we will be getting it day one, painting up. I can't wait. This dude has 1,000,000 rules.
He has like as much rules as he has lore. Tons of extra things to help him do certain things and exclude other rules, things like that. The first thing I want to mention is he is actually the very first Supreme Commander that we've actually seen. We've had rules for the Demon Primarchs, things like that, but this is the actual Supreme Commander that lets him basically fit into a Supreme Command detachment. It basically refunds the points for that, so you can get that Lord of War without paying for your Lord of War. That's the long and short of it.
One of the things about him, he's 16 wounds.
Right.
He comes with 2 other protective pylons. They're 5 wounds each. The whole unit has a 4-up invuln. It's all like T7, right? He actually has pretty crazy shooting. Those little pylons, they're like flat 6 damage.
Oh my gosh.
They shoot like crazy. The dude's 450 points, which is a lot, but actually totally fair.
When you compare him to like Morty and Magnus, you're like, sure.
That's right.
For basically being 26 wounds, I love that cheeky way of making him obscuring, but still making him be 26 wounds.
He actually has a lot of wounds, but he's still obscurable. And because he's got fly, it means he can be behind something and then over it the next turn.
So cool.
So actually, I really like that about him.
Yeah.
He's got, so many things. Let me rattle through it.
Let's do it.
He can deny psychic power. He gives reroll wounds in melee for core and Praetorians within 6 inches.
Just wounds flat out.
Yeah, reroll wounds.
Which is huge.
We know it's huge, right? 6-inch reroll hits in shooting, with core and Praetorians. He gives +1 move, which is a standard relentless march. He gives My Will Be Done twice, which is standard for any Pharaon. He lets you alter the command protocol just once per game. Once per game, you get to alter that could be so clutch. He gives you +3 command points just for putting them in your army.
So not only are you getting it refunded for being in that detachment, you're also getting +3?
Yeah, and the dude explodes on a 4-up for a 2d6 range and d6 damage.
Oh my god, so he's a knight.
And he fights in combat like crazy.
Right.
But if you've ever seen like the Triumph of St. Catherine, he degrades like crazy.
Oh, okay.
Like when he degrades, because he's actually 3 people. He's a he's a triarch. He's the 3 leaders, right? So as he starts degrading, the other people are dying, right? So the pylons die first. They have to die first.
Right.
So you lose your shooting. And then the other people die, and they're actually people spitting out different auras. So it's like the reroll aura is coming from one of this guy, and the other reroll aura is coming from this guy.
The Statler and Waldorf guys?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what's actually happening. So you're losing attacks and aura abilities. It's a ton to keep track of, though. So complicated. He has more rules on him than any datasheet, I think, in 40K.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
You do have living metal.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, the list keeps going.
He's got so many rules. Yeah. He is an absolute beast. So really, really liking the design of him. The only, I guess, weird thing is like his dynasty is not the best.
Yeah,
the
Caesarian dynasty is not the strongest by any stretch. It's not horrible.
Right.
But it's nothing amazing. The main thing it does, it gives you a free reroll to win.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Salamanders one.
Yeah, and it's like okay, but
so it's an interesting combination because it's not the best dynasty in our opinion.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the buffs that he gives are pretty much unprecedented.
Enough to build an army around.
We're looking at the Necron in the Space Marine book, and it's great. Like 4 rerolls still existing in an aura is nuts. So you really start to build your army around him.
And if you like Praetorians, like I do, Praetorians are excellent. This is one of the only things that buffs Praetorians.
Right.
Because Praetorians are dynastic agents. They don't actually work.
Right.
And they specifically exist to protect the Triarch. So they specifically exist for him.
That's great.
And so they synergize well. So I'm thinking of getting another 10 Praetorians and then him, and I've got 20 Praetorians plus him.
Cool.
I think that's an army right there.
For sure.
Yeah, so let's do that. There's another god on the battlefield.
Ooh, that's right.
And it's the Satan. And they have changed a ton.
Massive changes. Yeah. First of all, they are really expensive. They're like 350 points.
350. There's one that's a little cheaper.
There's one a little cheaper. But, oh my goodness, these guys are ridiculous.
Yeah,
so first of all, we've seen this rule on the Void Dragon. We've seen a similar one on Gaz before. They can only take up to 3 wounds in a certain phase.
Per phase.
Which is amazing. Makes them super, super tanky.
Yeah, it's called Necrodermis. It replaces the rolled Necrodermis roll. It still gives them a 4-up invuln as well.
It's so great. Yeah. Now, there's one caveat to that.
There is, that they don't benefit from the character rule.
That's right.
So I saw the internet going crazy that, oh my God, you can't target them and they can only take 3 wounds.
Yeah.
What was GW thinking? Well, they were thinking that would sound terrible.
Yep.
And they built a rule specifically in that they don't benefit from Lookout Sir.
Exactly. So that makes them suddenly still very tanky, but you do have to be careful. Again, they all have fly, so you can still use up terrain, pop out, do different things.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's
and
just interesting.
They all universally have more wounds, more attacks, and they are really, really, really good at fighting now. Not only do they, just with the more wounds and attacks, but their attacks are better. Like the Nightbringer, by default, he ignores invulnerable saves and feel no pains.
It's so good.
And if you're playing with the Deceiver, all you have to do is pay 1 CP for Entropic Strike, and they've changed it. So all your attacks ignore invulnerable saves.
So good.
So if you've got any one thing you super need dead, they'll do it.
Oh my gosh.
They'll get it done.
Not to mention, if you're like me and you always roll a 1 on your Deceiver, with the D3 he now redeploys a flat 3 additional units.
So he's amazing.
So consistent, so powerful.
Yeah, we played him in a game, our first game, and I just love him. And so their powers are still great. They're similar, but every power is just like 1 notch better.
Right.
One notch more consistent, more damage, more range.
Yeah.
Goes off easier. Like they just made them all a little better. And there's powers that are specific to the Void Dragon, the Nightbringer, etc. So this is all great, and there's a healthy number of strats. The Satan are great. I don't know that you'll need them in every army because they're so pricey.
They're a lot.
But they do a thing that nothing else does.
Exactly.
Nothing else in the game does what these Satan do.
They're so cool. I'm really excited. I can't wait to run them.
But I think they're very balanced. So I don't think you have to worry about them being broken.
Yeah.
But if your opponent doesn't have an answer for it, it's real good.
It's going to be really scary.
Yeah, I'm into it.
So another thing is everything gets living metal now. This is really nice. It's just a nice buff.
Yeah, we touched on this a bit with the reanimation, but it's really good, especially good on 2 wound plus models because it doesn't do anything on 1 wound models. So, So just think about that on your 2 wound models.
Because we know that people are not the happiest about reanimation on the destroyers and things like that, and we cannot emphasize enough needing to have the entire context of a whole book, right? Yeah. What are the other things that they're getting? What are the things that warriors don't benefit from? And it's really important to take that holistic view when you're looking at those. We can't just look at a single rule. Just doesn't work like that.
One of my favorite rules in this army is quantum shielding.
Yes.
Quantum shielding is just that moment when they dump everything at your tank and it does nothing.
Yeah. I know that moment.
Yeah, we had that moment recently.
Yeah.
And quantum shielding's been changed, and I'm actually really happy with it. What they've done is they've given all the vehicles with quantum shielding a 5-up invulnerable save, which they really did need.
Yep.
And actually, they gave them all the ability to not be wounded on anything but a 4-up. So 1s, 2s, and 3s to wound always fail, which is really 2s and 3s. Always fail, which is great because they're only T6 vehicles.
Yeah.
So it's a big change.
It basically makes them like T8 or T9 against most of the things that want to be shooting at them, right? And I love this change. This, again, follows this paradigm that we're seeing where things are more consistent. They're a little bit less swingy. They're a little bit less frustrating, too, right? Quantum shielding was really frustrating as a Necron player when you failed it, but also equally frustrating for the other person when you succeeded. And this is just very consistently good and reliable.
I really, really love it. And the quantum deflection ability now gives you just a 4-up invuln.
Yeah, that's right.
And a 4-up invuln on a vehicle that you really want to keep alive is really good.
And it's 1 CP, right?
1 CP.
Super cheap.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Another thing which is more of a theme overall is they've made this army actually really scary in combat.
Very
like genuinely scary in combat. And it's not just 1 unit, it's like half the book.
Exactly. So just to name a couple of things, right? We have the flayed ones, which are classic melee monsters. I've actually been taken aback by them, especially against my orcs.
Yeah.
They have a couple changes. They actually get a native -1 to hit, which is awesome. Native -1 AP.
They had 0 AP before, it goes to AP 1.
They had a ton of attacks, a ton of hits and wounds and things like that, but it was still no AP. So they get native
so many
-1.
things in the game with good armor saves these days, you need it.
You need it. Yeah. Again, sort of in the same paradigm of orcs, you need the rend, right? They also have exploding 6s to hit.
Yes.
So they just are more of blenders. And then they have another weird one at -2 leadership. Take it or leave it.
That's fine. They're terror troops. They'd always have that.
Yeah.
And they have some strats that are really great for them, so we don't need to go into that, but they're just generally a big winner, actually.
Yeah, they are.
And they've got a new model range coming out.
They do.
So I actually don't own them yet. I'll wait until the new model range
They were
come
super old, and the new ones look really awesome, so that's cool to see.
The Tri-Praetorians really got a big buff as well. +1 attack and +1 damage.
Yeah.
So they're up to that 2 damage sweet spot. And now they have enough attacks to actually make it really hurt. I'm super into it. And they still have Judgment of the Triarch, which is 1 CP for +1 to hit.
Yeah.
So you've got a 10-man squad hitting on 2s. Really good strength for killing Marines. I'm into them.
Yeah, and something that we've been kind of talking about back and forth on the show is Ryan has these Praetorians. He loves them. I really like the Lich Guard. I was like, I don't know which one I want. Praetorians are not core. Lich Guard are core.
Yeah.
So that's a nice kind of balancing factor to come with the now additional +1 attack.
Yeah.
So I think without that, it would have been pretty clear that Praetorians were better. But now it's actually an interesting decision between the two.
It actually is, and we're gonna have to test play it a bit more.
Yeah.
I think the Lich Guard more often than not might come out, but if you're not using your core benefit on them, like if you're not putting My Will Be Done on them,
right?
And maybe a lot of times they're off on their own, so maybe it doesn't really matter that much.
This is a big thing that you're going to be seeing in your army building. We're going to talk about more of this in our other videos. Is how much do you want to focus on core? How much do you want to just ignore it and just take the other benefits?
Yeah.
A big thing in these 9th edition codexes moving forward.
Yeah. You have two kinds of combat destroyers.
Yes.
You have the Scorpec destroyers and the Orphidian destroyers, and they both have hyperphase reblades, which are just like flat 3 damage, tons of attacks, flat 3 damage.
Yeah.
Both of the units are like a little pricey, not too tanky, but they really can dish it out. And if you're going up against a bunch of 3-wound Marines, these guys will just chop through them.
Yeah.
And I really love that.
They're really great. I do like that the Ophidians also have a redeploy stratagem.
Yeah.
Because the other ones are just a bit tankier, so it's nice that the Ophidians can kind of fulfill that other role of being kind of more mobile, things like that. And then, of course, we mentioned the Catans, but very good combat beatsticks, just absolute bullies.
Yeah, and then everything. There's strats, there's dynasties that give +1 charge. There's
the melee dynasty is pretty nuts.
Yeah, there's command protocols that give extra AP on the first turn you charge. So lots of just combat abilities. If you wanted to build a combat-focused army, now you really can, and you're not really sacrificing anything at all.
Absolutely. So another thing that we've been kind of seeing on the internet, if you have opened that web browser, is all the upgrades to weapons. Yeah. These are great. Pretty much everything just got a stat increase.
Yeah, we don't want to go through them all, but in general, most weapons got better. Almost nothing got worse. Yeah. They did some trade-offs where a weapon lost damage, but it got like double the shots.
Right. So there was a lot of kind of finessing the different profiles, making them different and interesting, and not one like just flat better than the other, which kind of existed before. So it's all good. These are good changes.
Yeah, I honestly, we don't want to go through them all, but
that's a whole
there's
video,
some really good ones. I really love the heavy death rays. They've got a bunch of them on the flyers, and they've got them on the monolith now, and it's actually like a really scary weapon because like D6 damage or D3 +3 against vehicles and stuff. Tons of cool stuff. So great stuff there. But the next thing, and this is going to be a change to every army, is that core keyword.
That's right.
And if you've seen our Space Marine videos, you've seen how core didn't really impact that army that much.
So
this
prevalent.
Army is very impacted by it.
Yes.
There's a long list of things that only impact core, right?
Yep.
It's My Will Be Done, the Lord's Will, all the Silent King auras, the Warden Fall Back and Shoot ability, Relentless March for the +1 move, Veil of Darkness, your favorite relic from time, only core. Immortal Pride, the Warlord trait to help you with leadership. That's only core as well. And pretty much all your teleport strats, the things that allow you to deep strike in, or come out of a monolith, or come out of a night scythe. All of those are all core.
Guess what's not core?
Yeah.
All of the destroyers, basically, the wraiths, everything. You know, it's really just core is warriors and immortals.
Everything canoptic is not core. Yeah. Everything destroyer is not core. Flayed ones are not core. Praetorians not core.
Yeah.
All the vehicles in the Catan are not core. So
this is unfortunate.
This one is actually a little painful.
Yeah, it is.
Particularly, losing some of the auras and some of the teleport abilities. But it's clear they're really trying to enforce a kind of build.
Yes.
And they don't want to see anything get out of hand. They don't want you to make like a super Scorpec unit and it gets all the buffs and then it's teleporting in.
Exactly.
That could get out of hand.
Oh, absolutely. So I think, again,
it's good for the game.
It's good for the game, and this is what it is. So, take it with a grain of salt and kind of move forwards with it. MSU is interesting, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not getting the benefits of core, like we said, you can be much more aggressive, moving up. You don't need buffs. Honestly, we've seen in 9th edition the negatives of clumping around certain buffs and relying on those buffs. So it's a different play style that we're going to be seeing coming forwards, and just be thinking about it in that way when you look at your army.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is just a handful of things that have changed that come to mind. We did a much more in-depth full codex review, so you could see it in more depth there. But these are kind of some of the need-to-know things to get you thinking about how to play this army a little differently. There's a lot to play test here. We're going to be playing the army a bunch over the next couple weeks and trying out different dynasties, different builds. Do we go combat? Do we go vehicles? Do we go MSU? Lots and lots of ideas in there, and I'm just so excited to dig into this book and play with it a lot more.
Cannot wait to try stuff. And if you guys are as excited as we are, let us know in the comments. Try different things. Hit us up on Facebook. Definitely do like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And not only that, if you want to get additional content, you can hit up our Titans Pro subscription.
That's right.
$5 a month. Support us, get some awesome content, and come hang out with us in our special Discord channels.
It's great.
Cool. So we'll see you guys very soon.